In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Tonight, our special guest is Reverend Michael Angley Ogwuche. He is a seasoned minister, chaplain, author, and social justice advocate with over 30 years of global service. His journey began in Africa as a street evangelist and pastor, and today he leads transformative ministry across Europe. As National Director of Chaplaincy for the New Testament Church of God, England and Wales, he oversees chaplaincy programs in hospitals and prisons, blending pastoral care with systemic advocacy. Rev. Ogwuche is also the host of the Numa podcast and author of several impactful works, including HIV/AIDS Stigma, Preparing for Revival, Dyslexia and Me, and Philosophia Instant. His writings bridges theological philosophy and lived experiences, especially his journey with neurodivergence. Together with his wife, Dr. Jenny Wong Ogwuche, he travels globally to teach, minister, and champion community development. His life works reflects a deep commitment to faith in action, lifelong learning, and healing, power of service. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ogwuche. Rev, hello, sir. How are you?
Good evening. Fine, thank you. Can you hear me all
Yes, sir, I
right?
can hear you.
Or do I need a
No,
headphone
no,
and
no, I can
microphone?
hear you.
Okay. Good good to be with you tonight,
Yes,
King.
sir. How are you, and how's everything going?
Well, I give thanks to the Almighty God, the master of the
Oh, yes,
universe.
sir. So is there anything you'd like to
Yeah.
add to your bio before we jump into the show?
I think that is more than enough what you read.
Okay. Well, I definitely appreciate that. And so what we'll do is
Okay.
we're going to start with your ministry and global leadership. And what we want to do
Right.
with this part is we want to talk about your spiritual journey and your leadership. So if you
Right.
can tell us what first called you to ministry and how did your journey begin in Africa?
Well, I think this was captured in my book, Preparing for Revival, as well. I was born I used to say I was born in the bathroom, not in the hospital, and in a very rugged place, not so nice place. When you are having your shower and your soap happened to fall, you can't even pick it. That's how bad it was. And my father was a soldier, and my mom was a homemaker. Both of them have now left us. And so a couple of years ago, that's before 1987, when I gave my life to Christ, because I understood what poverty was, I didn't want to be poor. So I tried so many things that my parents will not even know or can reckon with, and including trying to join occultic group, so that I can become wealthy. But at that point, it failed because my roommate, Richard, bless his soul, he reported me to a Christian woman who challenged me why I wanted to do that or why I had to do that. And I explained why I thought I should do that. But during that period, because of the demand from the cult group, when you join the group, you have to be going to attending meetings every night. I mean, no, once a month, and then they'll donate money to you. I thought that was okay, and I mean that was it, and I was happy to do that. But then I was informed that you cannot. I mean, after a year, you will have to go to a city in Nigeria called Calabar, and then you will have to bring your own
Oh,
sacrifice. And that sacrifice has to be a human sacrifice. And that has to be someone you love most. And I wanted to be wealthy so I can help my mother and my sister. And you have to bring someone you really, truly love. I thought about it and I said, well, I had a girlfriend, so I could sacrifice her, and that would be okay. I can always get another one. But once you start thinking about that, it means you don't truly love that person. And that means that it won't work. So at that point, it was really, really a point in my life when I couldn't sit alone in the room like I'm sitting now, because I will see myself as if there's another person with me. And I couldn't walk on the street. I mean, maybe in a hallway, I couldn't. At that point, I was in the room when a soldier man who was a Christian came in, and he was asking after my friend. And I said, Richard is not in today. As he turned to go, and I said, excuse me, sir, do you only invite those who go to your church? And then he said, no. I said, I want to go to church. And that was 1986, I think. And so I went to church with him. And on the 12th of January, 1987, I made that decision when the preacher man made an altar call, and I decided I wanted to become a Christian. So that was my journey. And uh, 2 weeks run into 2 months, 2 months into 2 years, and now we're in 2025. So that was my turning point on this side of
oh
eternity.
wow. And so did you feel what were you feeling like fulfilled, energized, brand new, or any of those things as you started to give yourself to the church?
Of course, yes. I think then what we now know as
Mhm.
neo-Pentecostal, which is linked to the American dream, was not very popular then. It was the classical
Mhm.
Pentecostal church, and then we were preparing to go to heaven. And so most of my preparation was not for this world, not as it is now. And I didn't know any pastor who was rich at that point. So to be a pastor at that time in Nigeria, um, no girl want to marry you because she's it's like she's marrying into
Mhm.
poverty and all that. And if you have a car, they will ask you, how did you get a car? So pastors were enriched. But today, as I speak, um, 5 out of 10 richest pastors in the world, 5 of them are in
Oh
Nigeria.
wow.
So I felt energized. I felt newness in my life. And I still feel renewed today after many years of being in
Mhm.
faith.
So how has your faith evolved over 3 decades of service?
How does my faith
How
evolve?
has your faith evolved over the
Well, of course, I'm a different person now, joining from 30 years back, because, like I said, I was introduced into classical Pentecostal and then moved up to Neo-Pentecostal. And then I moved out of Africa, first as a missionary to the Gambia, and then to the United Kingdom, where I served with the British Methodist Church and now with the New Testament Church of God. So my faith, and then I've had several theological education in ministry, in theology, in global mission and culture, and chaplaincy. So obviously my faith, and as you continue to grow in faith, other things that you knew before will begin to take different form in meaning. And I'm not the same person I was 30 years ago.
So, can you tell us what does it mean to lead ministry across continents and culture?
Well, that's an interesting question. My dissertation at the University of Manchester,
Mhm.
United Kingdom, was on reverse and
Oh,
diaspora
wow.
mission. Yeah, so and what that entails is not when we say reverse mission, it's not a term that the Western or the Northern Christian global North want to hear, because what reverse mission means is me coming from the global South to the global North and becoming a missionary. And I was a pastor to three congregations of Middle England, all white. I was the only black, and it was difficult. But I wanted to do that because when I was writing my dissertation, I looked at the reason why black folks will, when they start a church, it will be made up of black folks. And if they are Nigerians, it will be made up of Nigeria. If they are Ghanaians, it will be made up of Ghanaians, and so on and so forth. Eastern Africa, Zimbabwe, West and Southern Africa, etc. But I didn't want to go that route because I feel that if God's brought me this way, then He surely will want me to minister to the indigenous people, in quote. And so I seek to work that, and that was the reason I went to work with the British Methodists, because that's the only way I can get to the core of the people who inhabit this part of the world. It's been challenging, but in my research, I found that one of the reasons why black people congregate separately from the white folks is because, especially now, I work for the New Testament Church of God, which it came from the United States, from Tennessee to the Caribbean. And then when the Caribbeans came here by invitation of the king, of the queen rather, they wanted to mix up with the rest of the churches, but they were never not accepted, and so they decided to establish their own church. So today, the New Testament Church of God is one of the black majority churches in the United Kingdom, and I think I'm the only Nigerian who works among Caribbeans. And so it's not been easy working across board because, as I said, I've worked in the Gambia, and then I've been to Romania for ministry as chaplain. I've been to other parts of Europe and even the United States as well. So for me, it's only give me a new perspective about the human race. We have one race, and that is the human race. And so I see every human being as a true identity of the one true God. It doesn't matter what pigmentation you come with.
Oh, wow. So, so as you're doing this and you're doing this world travel, you're going country to country. What are your
Yeah.
interactions with the people that you're meeting and learning of the differences in your religion as it goes per different, all these different segments of the world? What are your interactions with the people that you've come across? What has that been like?
Well, like I said, I think I've been to parts of China and Hong Kong, And in fact, I have a partnership in Hong Kong. And so, one common thing that brings us together is our common humanity and the belief in Christ. I think one um, notable aspect of human relationship that I found in China is that as a foreigner in China, you're not allowed to join in worship with the Chinese people. That's on mainland China. That's because they don't want you to corrupt the people. You're allowed to go to an international church, but not the church, the indigenous Chinese church.
Wow.
So, but still, we have one human, one connection as human beings. And I've preached in China, in Hong Kong and other places, and the feeling is the same. And if you become a global citizen, that I consider myself, I believe that that changes perspective about things that we, or how we see ourselves. You see, and again, as coming from Nigeria, we do not have history that we were oppressed. At least not from my own time. So we just go to places and then we feel as free as we can be.
So, how do you balance pastoral care with administrative leadership?
Well, it's not easy because right now I wear so many hats and it's hurting. It's hurting me. I am a national director of chaplaincy, and then I also sit on the steering committee for the Free Church, which include in fact, all the other churches that are not Anglican or Catholic. So, and the Free Church, we have 200 ministers, chaplains, and I represent the New Testament on that board, and we meet in London occasionally. So that's one responsibility, and I have some paid chaplains and maybe nearly 200 volunteers. Of course, I do have regional directors, and I head that. And then I run another organization called NOPSI, which is the Nigerian Overseas Prisoner Support Initiative. And that's why I travel most of the time to try and visit Nigerians who are in prison in different countries. And then for example, recently about 34 Nigerians, I don't know if that's happened, they were, involved in drug trafficking, and they were imprisoned in Thailand, Indonesia rather, and they sentenced them to death. And so I asked the Nigerian government if I could go to see them before they execute them. So things like that. I wanted to be where those who have lost their way in this world are. So and I work for His Majesty's prison as well. Every week, I do 20 hours at the prison, and then occasionally hospital as well. So I have many things I'm doing. And as I mentioned to you some times ago, I'm also a student at Wesleyan Robert University in state of New York, Rochester. So I'm doing a doctor of ministry. So with all of this, I am very busy.
Oh, wow.
But I do have assistant as well who help me with most of the things that I have to do.
So, what's your approach to mentoring emerging chaplains and ministers?
What's
your approach? What's
Say that
your
again.
approach to mentoring?
Okay. Yes. Okay. Chaplaincy is another unique ministry. It's a ministry outside the gate. And I totally enjoy being with the men in prison, because there you see life differently. So, but many chaplains are not young. We're just talking about that in my office recently. Why young people are not in chaplaincy, especially like prison. Most of us are past maybe 40, 50, and all that. And that's because it's a vocation where you try to, I mean, your experience matters as well, and also your approach. For example, when a prisoner tried to insult me, sometimes I would say I'll try to de-escalate the situation and say, being in prison is bad enough. And if I were in your shoe, I'll be mad as well. So I'd never get angry with them because of that. So mentoring, what I'm, as a national director of chaplaincy, what I'm trying to do right now is to bring up young men and women to join the British Armed Forces as chaplain. And so I am in the midst of doing that. And mentoring, my approach is to try and sell chaplaincy not as a profession, but as a vocation. Because once we begin to approach chaplaincy from professional perspective, which is expected by the institution, we seems to lose the touch why we are called in the first instance.
So, how do you navigate your ministry in secular institutions like hospitals and prisons? Are there things that you do different?
Mm. Yes, I think we suggest that every pastor should have a chaplaincy experience. And the difference between us and those pastors outside of institutions is that first, they don't have tolerance. I mean, we meet different kind of human beings created by
Okay.
God. And I used to say to my men, I'll say to them that you've been judged already by the state. We're not here to judge you. We're here to work with you. And what strikes me most of the time is that when I'm sitting in front of a prisoner who have murdered someone or have done something terrible, I don't see the prisoner, the crime that a person commits. I first see the human being and then the crime. And that reminds me when the Bible say, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. But if you flip it the other way, you find that not every pastor one would see a criminal from a person perspective. And then we have to, joining government or the civil service, which we are, you have to sign up to many things. And that is, you're not going to discriminate against anybody, whether you agree with the person's lifestyle or not. You know what I mean? So there are so many things like that that we have to navigate our ways. And then as you progress into your work, you begin to get used to separating things. For example, we had a Buddhist chaplain, employed a new Buddhist chaplain, and I have to help him to get used to what he's doing. So, I mean, help him to move his idols, if you like, his gods, and position it for him and all that. Now, a regular pastor will say, "No, I can't touch this." But we try not to proselyte anyone, but to try to be a presence of the God we represent. And then the other interesting thing is working in a multi-faith sector where you have Muslim chaplain, the pagan, the Rasta chaplain, every other kind of chaplain, and you have to work in harmony with each other.
So, so when you think about your work, I mean, this is really interesting because have you ever done any of your work like here in any part of the US?
You mean like
Yes. Have you done
ministry?
any of that here in the US?
Well, I've done preaching work in the U.S. And I have presented paper as Bishop Claggett Center in near Washington D.C. and also in New York and where again? Yeah, somewhere in Maryland. And I was in the U.S. last year attending our chaplaincy conference
Okay.
as well.
Now, the premise to this question is I want to know if you can tell us, and please help our audience to understand one thing. Did you notice any
Mhm.
differences in the work that you do and how it operates in the process over in the UK, in Africa, and the US? Are there differences?
Well, I think for the United Kingdom and the United States, the difference is in the language and
Mhm.
approach. Now, we are more traditional Christians in the United
Okay.
Kingdom. So, but in America, because like I said, the conference we attend is Church of God Chaplains Commission conference. So we have so many, about 300 or 200 to 300 chaplains from the military, from the hospital, everywhere, prison. So we met there to share the same thing you're asking me. And we found that uh, in the UK we are very formal, whereas in America it's slightly
Mhm.
different. Prison is prison, but I think our prison here were more humane than what you
Okay.
have there. I'm sorry to
No,
say,
I mean
but
that's
that's
understandable. We
how,
speak the truth, and the truth is what it is.
yes. So, and that's because there are a lot of things you can't do to a prisoner because of the law and all that. And also, as chaplain in 1952, there was the chaplaincy became prison chaplaincy became an act of parliament, and it says that every prison should have a prison
Mhm.
governor, a prison chaplain, and a medical
Mhm.
officer. So we're not in prison, we are in prison by the act, the parliamentary act, So, and that gives us, I mean, we are like CIA, if you like. We know what we interface with the prisoners. If they have problem, they tell us. We interface with the officers and other non-operational of staffs. So, and in Africa, in Nigeria, Nigeria is 2.5% popular. 2.5, I think, the total world population. So it will be like a general picture for the rest of Africa. Now, in most African country, they don't recognize chaplain in the way it is recognized in the US and in the UK and Australia, or the first world, if you like. And that's because the churches, the pastors go to the prison by themselves, so they haven't seen the need for having chaplain, and they are making mistake. I was in Nigeria recently as well, to meet with some of the leaders of the prison to try to tell them that chaplains, we do three things: we provide spiritual care, pastoral care, and religious care. Now, spiritual care uh, is you can't be spiritual without religion. Every human being
Mhm.
have a spiritual dimension, and some know it and some don't. But in Africa, when you say that, they don't understand it that way. So when you say chaplain, they think you're going to preach to someone, but that's not what we do. We provide spiritual care. For example, if somebody died, a prisoner lost a family, regardless of faith, we will say, would you like to light a candle in memory of your loved one? Or if they are down in their spirit, we're there with them. And religious care, we provide maybe weddings, baptism, and then pastoral care, we provide that to everyone who need care in our custody. So that doesn't happen in that way in most parts of Africa, but in the UK it's a big thing, and in the US
Okay.
too.
So, what role
Yeah.
does public theology play in your work today?
What role does
With
theology play?
theology, what part?
Okay, public theology, you mean, right? Well, I think again, like I said, every pastor should have a taste of chaplaincy, because public theology, you approach theology not from a narrow perspective, but looking at the general picture of humankind. So I studied chaplaincy, masters in chaplaincy, and then but it's also fitting nicely with public theology, which I am interested in. And so public theology plays a very big role in chaplaincy, because it gives you the broader view of life in itself. And I said to my bishop, I said, um, when the whole churches are closed, we are going to be the last fort that will be present, because we are everywhere. At the airport, you find us. I mean, retirement home, name everywhere, chaplaincies everywhere. And we do not bring religiosity, we bring humanity while keeping our faith in the gods that we believe.
So, how do you integrate cultural sensitivity into your chaplain's programs?
Well, the unfortunate thing is, in our prison, like the United States, we have a lot of black people, young black people in prisons here in this country. And that is sad. And it is sad in my heart every time I think about why and what is the cause of these young people coming to our prison system. So, culture, there are a lot of things to do with culture. And for me as a chaplain, I have to be culturally sensitive to everything I do, because even certain things you say with your mouth could become an issue with other people there, whether prisoners. And for example, if somebody say, if a male, and then tells you the next day, I'm a female now, you have to accept what that person say and address them the way they want to be addressed. So but if you come from a conservative country, that will be very difficult to swallow. And again, because of our approach at chaplaincy and training, you do not judge anyone because of their culture, their color. They are just human beings who have missed their way. So every chaplain is culturally sensitive. Even among our multi-faith team, you have to be careful when you address your colleague who is from a different faith, because they might misunderstand what you are saying. So sensitivity is key.
So, what's one moment in ministry that reaffirmed your calling?
That refine my
Reaffirmed,
calling.
yes.
Oh, reaffirm my calling. I mean, it wouldn't be one moment. I mean, because every day, even today, if I ever feel that I don't have that calling, I have better things to do than sticking out in ministry. So I think that personal relationship that I have built, not personal religiosity, but relationship, knowing that there is a higher being. I may not know him as I wish to know, but I do know that there is a master of the universe. And knowing that give me that, and that I have a relationship. And but to pinpoint one singular point is difficult, because I feel that all of my life, given my background, the only reason why you're able to speak to me today is not because of my background or my birth background, but because of my relationship with God, that He has brought me this far across the
Oh,
world.
wow. Um,
Yes.
so can you tell us this? And I want to make sure I say this nice and slow because this is a really big question here.
Shoot, shoot as much as you can, my friend.
So you tell us, how do you define spiritual leadership here in the 21st century?
Mhm. Mm. I've just started by telling you about the definition of spirituality. We, I would say, unfortunately, are in an age where, of course, in 2020, 2016, January, the word post truth was injected into our English lexicon. And so, uh, because every year the Oxford updates its dictionary, and then that post-truth got in
Okay.
2016. Now, before then, you have postmodernity, and then you define what is postmodernity. Everybody have their own definition, but it simply means that your truth is not my
Right.
truth.
Right.
So do you believe Christ is coming? You say, well, let him come, but that's your business, not mine. And that's a postmodern person. Then when we move to post-truth, post-truth simply mean, and we see that play out in politics in America, in across the world. They say, this person is claiming to be a Christian,
Mm,
and he does the opposite of Christianity. And a supposedly Christian will say, I don't care whether he's a Christian or not, but I'm going to vote for him anyway. And that's a Christian. So post-truth say, I don't care what what the result will be. And that's place all of us in a mess that the whole world is right now. I want to be politically correct, but I will say that the world is in a reset mode right now. And we'll find out soon in the next few years where all this thing is heading to.
can I
So,
ask you this? Because it sounds like post-truth means it's a lie.
yes,
That's
yes. You
so.
know, in this in this country, we voted to leave. I mean, I didn't vote to leave the EU.
Mhm.
Uh, I voted to yeah, I voted to leave. And I had my reason for doing that, not political
Right.
reason. I wanted the attention of the United Kingdom to be turned towards the Commonwealth of Nations because at the time we were part of the EU, every attention of the United Kingdom was geared towards the European Union. So that was my own singular reason I voted out. And now we're paying for it too. But most of it came on the back of post-truth. So now, and post-truth impact on spirituality as well. Across the world, we are losing ground. I mean, Christianity, not just in America or in Britain. If you go to places like Nigeria, you see instead of Christianity, you find syncretic gospel. They take the African primary religion and mix it up with Christianity, and then they begin to do what they do right now. I mean, the gospel of Christ, which we preach from at the beginning, is no longer that way. Every person wants to be successful and to make it by all means, which is why I started by saying um, Neo-Pentecostalism hinged everything on the American dream, which was sold to the rest of the world. And now that is destroying Christianity in Africa. Anybody can just wake up and say, I am a pastor. And in fact, in America, I think it's worse because you have diploma mills. Everyone is a doctor, this, doctor, that, without substance. In fact, I met a prisoner some time ago, and he said he's a reverend. And I said, okay, tell me about yourself. And he said his friend, who is a Jehovah's Witness, wanted to get married, and then he had to become a reverend so he can conduct the marriage for him. So he went online and find some organization in America and paid £35, and he got a certificate as an ordained reverend. But he had no theology at
Yep.
all. So I think the rest of the world, they copy from the US, and that is taking us not to the place we need to be, and we're in a very murky water in the name of spirituality. So I feel that we've lost the meaning, but we are also redefining what spirituality is. And that's why I said every human being has spiritual dimension, and some are aware, some are not. And you don't have to be a Christian or a Muslim to be spiritual, unless your question is different from
No.
what I
Oh no.
understand.
Actually,
Yeah.
we'll get a chance to talk at another time because there's something else I would want to interject in that, but tonight is not the time to do
Okay.
that. We're gonna let's transition over to your work as an author and thought leader. What I want people to
Mhm.
get the opportunity to learn is your literary work and your intellectual
Mhm.
voice.
Okay.
Can you tell us what inspired you to begin writing alongside your ministry?
Well, I guess I'm one of those people, few people on earth that don't want to leave a legacy when I
Mhm.
die. I want to depart the way I come, and I want to be forgotten the moment I die. In fact, I don't want a funeral. I don't want nobody to 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 mourn or anything. I just want to go, and then I God brought me here. I finish my part and I go. But then, first of all, if you read from my bio about my neurodiversity, I was um, I was born in Nigeria, and people who know me think I am smart, but within me, I don't think so. Of course, I know so many things. I can do so many things. For example, I can't remember a lot of people's name unless I interact with them for a long time. And I also I couldn't pass exams like other children. I cannot talk, listen to a lecture and write at the same time. But I didn't know what that was. But I was ashamed as a young person growing up. Why is this? Why am I not like this person? I forget so easily and all of that. So I think the teachers in my book called Dyslexia Me, not my dyslexia, dyslexia me. So the teacher will advise my parent that look, this is not someone who should be. He's not cut out for academics. Let him just go and learn something, a trade or something. But I wanted to be educated, and so I was in Cliff College in England, and I met this Jewish man, and we went to the library, and he got 15 books, and I got 7, and he was giving 2 weeks, and I was given 1 week to return the books. So I asked him, why are you getting more books and more days? And he said, I'm dyslexic. Then I said, what's that? And he wrote it out for me. And I went online and I checked and I saw all the symptoms. Then I said, wow, so I'm not exactly stupid. It's just that my brain is designed differently. And so I had an assessment, and then with the assessment, I get help from the government with laptop, with softwares, mind mapping software, and all those things. And I think more in pictures than in word. But to answer your question, in order to put my thoughts down, I decided I need to write. And then I started writing on different subjects. In fact, my two books coming, one is marriage, tracing the history of marriage to where it starts. Because a lot of people think marriage is what they call white wedding is a real marriage, but no, it's the one the parent did. And then my other one is Christian thought on death and dying. I want people to see death and dying as going to Spain on holiday rather than feeling it's something bad.
Yeah.
So, and so I just want to put my thought out there. And preparing for revival was inspired by my early days in this country. I was disappointed when I came here thinking I'm going to see a lot of Christians and all that. And I found not. And I thought it's time for us to prepare for revival, which must begin from us as individuals.
So, how do your books reflect your personal and theological journey?
Well, I think in theology we have, and maybe in other literary discipline, we have different kind of critique method, and one of the ones people use most of the time is reader response critique criticism, meaning that you pick a book, my book, you read it, and then you interpret it from your own point of view. When maybe that's not what I mean to write. So my the way I approach my writings, I approach it from I'm not writing for money anyway. I'm writing what is really inside of me. And most all my books, if you read them, they have element of lived experience. Even for the HIV/AIDS, I some people have asked me if I had AIDS. No, I don't. But I lost someone, a very close cousin, to AIDS, and I decided to contribute. And so I've been part of the International AIDS Society, both in the US. I was in Canada, Montreal, not long ago. I volunteer as a volunteer supervisor for the conference. It's the biggest AIDS conference. And so I've been speaking to churches too and present papers on that particular subject. So, and the book is dedicated to my cousin. And then Dyslexia Me is about my story of dyslexia. And then Preparing for Revival is about my experience also of this country and the West. And it's written to the British public. And then Philosophia Instant is a collection of thoughts that I have, which I dedicate to the men in my prison.
So, can you tell us this? What message were you hoping to share in Dyslexia and Me?
I wanted people to know that neurodiversity is dyslexia precisely. Now, the umbrella word is neurodiversity. So some call it learning difficulty, but we call it learning difference. That's because the general educational system of the world is not designed by us. It's designed by supposedly non-neurodiverse people. So if we are given the chance to be the one to design education, the rest of you guys who are non-neurodiverse people will become disabled. So I want to bring to the people that look, 40%, over 40% of American billionaires are all neurodiverse people, all of them. In the UK, we have Richard Branson, we have all these other people. Richard Branson, for example, left school at 16 with PhD today and all of that. So we just need to be able to know that when your child is doing things slower or different, it's not stupid. It's just that the brain is wired differently. And so that's the message I want to pass to the rest of the world about my story and the story of others.
There's a comment here in the chat here. This is from B. Marcus Flanders. He just says peace and blessings.
Mm.
Um, I have well this next question here.
Mhm.
How do you use writing to challenge stigma and promote healing?
Well, I guess, unfortunately, again, we have a learning deficit in this world right now. People are more illiterate. Illiteracy, I'm sure listeners will know. Illiteracy is you can read, you can write, but you don't want to read.
Mm.
So you want to watch instead. And then people now, they are more into micro learning. I mean, break it down. And that's what, so now you have, in fact, I'm working on a project called Digital Chaplaincy, and we will be, we're looking for universities and all that will help us to do that. And what we want to do is to employ uh, platform like ChatGPT and train them as chaplains to be able to be available for 24 hours and can, it's a triage that can uh, that can flag off any danger. So now people want everything broken down, and so with the advent of artificial intelligence, you can do this so easily in minutes. So like you take my book and you put it through chat gpt, what is this book saying in 5 words, and it'll tell you what the book is saying. But you do need to have uh, uh, NA to use AI, NI to use AI. NI means natural intelligence, and then AI, artificial intelligence. So you need the both. So people are not reading now, and we have to explore. I was in Singapore a year ago. We were at the technology university, and to see the demonstration of Shakespeare broken down into animation for people to be able to understand the Shakespeare story. So writing, while it will challenge people, our thoughts in our writing will challenge people. Unfortunately, not too many people read anymore. So we have to find a different way to break this down, either through micro learning or any other way.
Well, I'll tell you like this. I've got all of his writings. And for me,
Mhm.
I don't want that no other way but to read those words myself. I can't
Yeah,
do that thing like most people do, which you're right, because I do
mm,
know a lot of people that just says, I prefer to hear read it to me. I want the audible book.
yeah,
I don't want to read, just hear the
yeah,
audible. And so you're right
mm,
about this, is that I understand how there's like so different, it's divergent when it comes to just learning in general. But when you think
yeah,
about that, and you think about, I'm going to still use your book, Dyslexia and Me. When you think about the
mm.
divergence in learning, and you think about your book, how can we make that come together as one, in your opinion?
Making my book
Well, no,
the
I'm talking about dyslexia. How can you make this
yeah,
dyslexia and all the different ways of learning? That is, from people that like to read to people that just like to hear the
mm,
book to people that want to
mm,
just get like a smaller version of the book in just a different kind of way with cliff notes. How can we
mm.
bring that together and make it all cohesive, in your opinion?
Well, I guess it's a very beautiful time to live in the world today, because the speed at which things are happening is too fast. Uh, so because, for example, if you are teaching translation in the university, you should be afraid for the future, because you are soon going to be out of the market, because there are so many ways to do that. Yeah. And even the future of university itself, because now you can easily learn anything you want to learn from the University of YouTube. So I think that the future of all of this thing, bringing these things together, is what is now called macro learning, where somebody will pieces the whole thing and break it down one after the other. It's just, for example, um, if you teach an African person, let's say a Yoruba person, mathematics in Yoruba, they are likely to make A than when you teach them in English, because they have to deal with several layers, like you translate it to the first language and then to the second one. So in the same way, to bring all of this together is to continue to explore. But I think, because I love macro learning as well, because it helps you to understand, instead of reading the whole thing, you just go straight to the key. What is that page saying? And that, for me, will be the future. But as dyslexic person, we have so many assisted dyslexia assisted technologies that we use to help us. Like even reading to me or speaking to the computer, there are things that are available to us.
So, what does Philosophia Instant reveal about your view of faith and philosophy?
Well, I think, coming from a Pentecostal background, the using the word philosophy doesn't sit well with so many people. But we have to understand that philo means love, study, or love or wisdom, and then philosophy, wisdom. Sorry, study. So wisdom or love for knowledge or love for study, whichever way you want. So as I continue to study, whether through institution or personal, I began to see things. For example, one of the things that motivated me was I look at life every time. Like if you listen to my podcast, I use things that people know are used to bring the biblical language out. And then, for example, Sahara Desert in Africa, you have only sand, but in South America and Brazil, where you have the Amazon cannot exist without the Sahara, because every year uh, the sand, the dust from the Sahara flies at 10,000 miles down to the Amazon to provide nutrients to the Amazon for it to grow. And you wonder how does this happen? But that's how God works. So putting that in philosophy, you are able to connect and find a message that resonates with people on this side
So,
of it.
um, how do you approach writing for both spiritual and secular audiences?
Okay, I think what I'm trying to do is to marry the two together, because I realize that you we don't exist in vacuum. We exist together, whether we like it or not. And uh, uh, earlier philosophers like Rene Descartes, the French
Yes.
philosopher, I mean Saint Augustine, all these guys, they had faith, and yet they were philosophers. So my what I really want to do, if I can, is to marry philosophy and faith, or religion, if you like, together, so that it makes sense to the modern or not post-truth person. Because religion in itself is not enough anymore. People need more than that. They want reality. How does this work, and where does God come in at all? So if we bring secular knowledge and biblical knowledge together, they can surely make sense to the next generation. And to add again is that I might be the last generation